Welcome to the show. Today we're going to talk about how to create a steady and predictable cash flow. We have with us Mr. Kevin. He is the founder and managing partner of RevSherpas, a boutique business growth advisory and customer experience strategy consulting firm for small and medium-sized businesses. He also is an author of multiple books that he has written, and he's going to share his insight today with us. Mr. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Brandy, thanks for having me on today.
Thank you for joining us. So, a lot of people always ask that question, how do I save more money in my business, right? We all want to know, how do we increase the bottom line of our business when it comes to our cash flow? What do you think is one of the most important things a business should look at when they're looking at that potential of, really maximizing their cash flow?
Sure, excellent question. So, turns out earlier this week, I came across an article on small business trends, and it mentioned that almost 1/3 of small business owners only have about a month in cash reserves. And shockingly, 15% have zero in cash reserves. Pretty amazing, right? It's not a good situation. So the question becomes, what do you need to do? I think the immediate answer would be save, have your emergency reserves, very similar to the personal finance advice out there. Have 6 to 12 months in emergency cash reserves. Same premise applies to your small business, but you have to take it one step further than that. And oftentimes business owners get so fixated with the social media hot strategy of the day, right? Instead, and perhaps in addition to that, if they would just focus on their current book of business, it's a really easy yet underutilized effective strategy to mine your current clientele, cross-sell, upsell them, essentially, better meet their needs just so that you can increase your revenue that way.
You talk about, there's only maybe 15% of businesses that don't have, a reserves at all. And majority of those individuals only have a month in reserves. What do you think is a sweet spot as far as percentage is concerned for reserves for a company?
Interesting question. So it's going to vary, right? I can't do the immediate mental gymnastics, but the rule of thumb, a lot of people will say 3 to 6 months in emergency cash reserves. I'm not, entirely sure what that would equate to as far as percentage of revenues or profits, but that's a good rule of thumb. However, I do recommend to my client family members to take it one step further and have 6 to 12 months of cash reserves, just so that they'll be better insulated in a time of crisis, such as the pandemic, right? Or such as the great financial crisis back in 07 and 08.
That's very interesting. There always been a rule of thumb is 90 days, which is 3 months clearly. But I like that sweet spot of 6 months to a year, because then that lets you know that at some point you can weather most storms, if not all, in that aspect when it comes to, maintaining, just your expenditures, your everyday expenditures, running your business. Why is growth so important in a business? We know that growth is important because, of a lot of other things, but why do you think growth is important in anything that you do?
Sure. So growth is absolutely paramount to the success of a business. It's not the only thing.
Yeah.
Granted, you want to be fulfilled, right? You want to add value to your customers' daily lives. But the reality is your doors aren't going to stay open if you don't have the cash flow coming in. So a key indicator to track your success and to ensure that you are on the right growth trajectory would be to have certain KPIs in place. How are your revenues doing compared to last month? How are they doing month over month, year over year? Are you meeting your monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, and annual goals? And not just revenues. Don't get me wrong; those are important. But the reality is, your profits are what are the most important barometer, and that's really what is going to display and demonstrate and convey, how you're doing as a business.
Cool. So what do you think the mistakes that most entrepreneurs make when they're trying to grow their business?
So a couple of things come to mind. In addition to lack of cash flow, which I think we've addressed already, I'm seeing a couple of other trends with my clientele, but also just the overall market. A few things do come to mind. One, they have flawed, ineffective marketing. They may have had success, they may have grown, but for whatever reason, they get arrogance. They just, I guess, lose touch with their customers. So they're no longer offering timely, relevant communication with their prospects and customers. And as a result, they reach a ceiling in their growth trajectory. Secondly, they're no longer able to scale because they have inconsistent, sporadic, and way too complex of a sales process. And then thirdly, their data on their clientele is not centralized. It's not accessible for the staff. So as a result, their service levels drop off and they wind up losing customers, which is never a good thing.
That's so true. How can someone use I guess the profitability of their company for that aspect of growth for their business? So if a company has profitability or they have, some excess profit, if you will, how can they utilize that for the growth of their business?
Sure. There's a couple of things that come to mind. On the one hand, they could reinvest those profits back into the business, right? They could utilize it to invest in themselves from a personal development standpoint. And far too many entrepreneurs don't surround themselves with a network, rather than a board of directors, kind of their own inner advisory or mentor board. By investing in themselves, they'll become a better leader. They'll be able to run their operations more efficiently and effectively. And it's tremendous ROI.
Awesome. So, and in that aspect of growth, what are the key stages, if you will, of business growth acceleration?
Sure. It depends how granular you want to get, but at a high level, let's keep it simple, right? Which I always like to do with my clients. Let's break it down into three stages of progression. On the one hand, right at the beginning, at the initiation or launch, you're in that start phase. And whether or not entrepreneurs like it, they're going to be in the start phase for a rather long time. It takes time to really get out of that phase and really progress into the growth stage. At that point in time, more revenue is coming in. I usually use about 250,000 in annualized revenue as the barometer to transcend into the growth stage. And then thereafter, the ultimate goal is to scale the business, right? So that is the ultimate pedestal in which business owners become self-sufficient. They no longer have to actually be as hands-on within the business. They have their staff well trained. They have the appropriate systems in place so that they can really streamline and automate and simplify the entire end-to-end customer journey, from lead generation to marketing to sales conversions to client onboarding, and ultimately to client service and retention.
That's awesome. There's a lot, entrepreneurs can get burned out really fast based on just literally being like the overall dependency of the business, especially in the beginning stages, always working, constantly working, just trying to put the processes together. So how can a small business owner outshine or outlast competition without burning themselves out?
Sure, that is the question, right? That's a huge challenge that all entrepreneurs will face, regardless of where they are in their entrepreneurial journey. And the other day, I saw an older interview with Grant Cardone, and he had an interesting perspective. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I thought it'd be interesting to share. His assertion was that entrepreneurs are constantly advised to focus on just one thing at a time and don't multitask. Just go all in on your business. But he suggests they burn out because essentially they get bored by just focusing on that one item. in case they do encounter adversity, there's really nothing to take their mind off of it to overcome that peaks and valleys. So in his case, he's running multiple companies, as are some of the other titans of industry out there, Elon Musk, for instance, right? But I don't agree with that perspective, because those guys are heavy hitters, right? They're brilliant. They've been doing this for years. So I'm a huge proponent of, you have to go all in, not just on one business. Don't launch another business until you truly have reached that pedestal of being able to scale, and you're actually over $1 million in revenue. And so how do you actually get to that level? Well, you have to stay focused, and you have to concentrate and really block out the distractions each and every day. And it doesn't start just with that day, the night before, the week before. You have to know, what are your key priorities? What are you setting out to attain and achieve? And if you adapt that mindset, it should result in you limiting the risk of burnout and potentially eliminating it outright.
That's awesome. That is so true. For most businesses that depend on sales, if you will, and most all businesses do, what are some of the key factors that a business can do to generating, I like to say, not just accelerating and just getting more leads, but reasonable leads that actually are producing leads to help, your sales growth?
Sure. So I always recommend to my clients, there's clearly multiple ways of bringing in leads. So what you have to do is qualify them, right? And that's really where you set yourself apart from the competition, because if you don't have a clearly defined niche, and simultaneously you don't have a clear market dominating position that truly sets you apart from the competition, you're not going to be able to really entice, intrigue, and get those leads qualified and further down your pipeline. So I'm a huge advocate of having more than one method of business development and prospecting. Don't just rely on social media outreach. Don't just rely on networking. Don't just rely on cold calling. Really do it all. And as a result, similar to investing, if you have that diversified approach, you should be able to overcome any ups and downs that you might encounter if one of your lead generation strategies actually stalls or doesn't meet your expectations for a particular time frame.
That's awesome. So the big question is, how do you create steady and predictable cash flow?
Sure. So to take it one step further, what we do with our clients, we conduct a profitability diagnostic and a business health assessment. So we're going to look at their current state. Where are they leaking revenues? Where are they leaking profits? What do we need to do to plug those holes, to really plug those leaks, right? And so we'll put in place an actionable marketing plan, a strategic sales roadmap designed to get them results in the near term, but also, more importantly, sustainable and over the long haul as well. And again, our proprietary Client Connect formula takes a comprehensive, multifaceted approach to bring in consistent, steady cash flow, because we're not just looking at the start of the sales funnel. We really want to identify those revenue and profit leaks throughout the entire sales and service cycle.
So awesome. That's so true. Kevin, I want you to really just give our audience insight on yourself by just tell us how we can find you, how we can locate you, and learn more about your brand and your business.
Absolutely. So I consistently post third-party value-added articles on LinkedIn. I'm Kevin Wessels, easy to find there. Also on Twitter, I'm at Kevin M. Wessels. And my corporate website is RevSherpas.com. And if your listeners go there, they actually, right at the very top, can receive the first book that I published entitled Exponentially Outperform in Any Economy, which provides 8 strategies that businesses really of any size are utilizing to find clients with less effort and create more consistent cash flow.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Kevin. We appreciate it for your insights.
Yeah, my pleasure, Brandy. Thanks a lot for having me.
All right. Thank you for joining us.